I mean, MailChimp, back end. Cheers to you.
Thank you,
Boom.
darling, darling, darling.
I'd like to make a second cheers to Howard University School of Communications for teaching us both to be ready on time and prepared and pick good people.
Yes. It's being boss
So with
babes.
that, yeah, with that, I feel like, yes, we can call to order the first episode of Office
Office
Hours
hours.
podcast.
Yes, yes, yes. So, in getting started, it's only right to welcome our guests and want to thank you for being here for our first episode of Office Hours. I am your co-host, Angel Livas, and
I'm your co-host, Meredith Crosby.
yay! So we know that people are going to funnel in all at different times, and some people will watch this later on. But we wanted to give everybody a sense of how Office Hours came about. And the brainchild behind Office Hours is Miss Meredith Crosby. And I think that the genesis of it for her, and I'll let her expand upon it, is we both were constantly having people like come to us and say, hey, I need help as it relates to business. That's what they would say to me. And Meredith, what would they say to you?
I need help with my life or my career.
Right. And so it was like, instead of us spending all this time individually, just, having one conversation here, one conversation there, why not create a space for us to open up our hours and allow people to have a real conversation with us without paying our hourly billable rates?
Aren't cheap.
No, they're not. And really being able to just like connect with us, get some information, and it's not just one of us. Now you get double trouble and double assistance. So, Meredith, thank you for the vision. Thank you for having that mindset to not be afraid to collaborate with somebody else. Because as we know, as women, that is a thing. We have this fear of, somebody shining brighter than you or stealing your clients or doing more. Mm-mm. I can never do what Meredith does, and Meredith can never do what I do. At least not the way that we do it, right?
No.
And even in pulling this together, it's just been a beautiful experience because we've been able to just do what we do best and bring it all together and make magic.
Yes. It's amazing. Thank you, Angel. That was like such a beautiful introduction. You are so good at what you do. Come on, come through. Yeah, for me, this kind of started when I got the opportunity to go to Sharjah in United Arab Emirates to this international government conference. And it was all these women from around the world talking about in communications and technology, like what's happening. Mm-hmm. And there was this theme about, as we increase social media, that we're also seeing more depression, you're seeing more isolation. And for entrepreneurs, for moms, it also shows up in a lack of confidence and just not having mentorship in areas of our life where, frankly, women are still new, right? Like, women are new in business, women are new in communications. Like, before Oprah, like, Oprah is the person I wrote reports about. Like, right. That was it. Right. And so I struggle with just feeling like I would get these ideas. I mean, we talked about this like last night. Like, I would have these ideas of like, what if we had a fun community space where we could all come together as women of color and support each other? And it would be like, people didn't get it. And so then I would start to second guess myself. And I felt like when people were coming to me, so much of it was for validation. Like, what you need to do for your life. You know what you need to do for your career. Right. But sometimes we just need somebody else who looks like us, who understands our life. Yeah. To just say, like,
we give you permission.
I support you.
Right. And you know me, like, I think it's also important to understand what your love language is. I think your love language is not just important for knowing how to maneuver in romantic relationships, but also business partnerships. I mean, people tell me all the time, and it doesn't take long. Like, Angel, you need words of affirmation. You need to know, like, okay, good job. Like, even last night, Meredith, we were going through things. She was like, oh, so I just want to tell you how awesome you are. And I'm like, okay, thanks. She's like, no, I'm not done. And so it's that knowing who you're working with and being able to provide them what they need So it's
That's
not
true.
one-sided. And so
Yeah, that's true.
everybody walks away feeling like they're winning in a situation.
Yeah.
Before we go on, I want to just say a quick shout out to Kandu in Ghana, who is checked in watching the show. Hi, Kandu.
Hey. And that already like fulfills our whole intention, right? Like one of the things we talked about last night was I was like, as long as there's somebody from outside of Minnesota, I'll feel like I did something with my day. So thank you for being here. You just like made my whole day. See how easy it is? Like joy does not have to be that difficult. I feel like that could be the headline of 2020.
So let's talk a little bit about our journey to office hours.
Mm-hmm.
So I told you kind of the why office hours was created, but I think that there's so much power and inspiration in the when that conversation took place. Meredith, would you like to share, or would you like me to share? Because
You go.
I'll just okay. So last week, Meredith and I we were supposed to have a business call with a potential client, and the client ended up canceling last minute. And so we ended up on the phone, I would say somewhere between at least an hour to 2 hours, easily. And the conversation went from, okay, this is what's going on with this client. We're not going to worry about that. But what are we going to do that we have some control over?
Yeah.
And we literally just started brainstorming. Meredith is an amazing, she'll transcribe, write out everything like, so there's no confusion. She's an amazing, she's a copious note taker. And so she's like literally like, okay, we said we're going to do this, we're going to do this, you're going to take the lead on this, I'm going to take the lead on that. And so by the end of that conversation, we had to-dos, we had tasks, and the very last thing that we said was, okay, well, when are we going to start office hours? And I'm a now type of person. So I'm like, okay, so I'm going to Thailand next week, so when do I have time between now and Thailand to crank out some things and make some magic happen? And so we said Tuesday. You know, it's not the top of the week because everybody knows Mondays can be difficult. But we didn't want it to get into like the weekend. I think the other thing that we were very cognizant of with a Tuesday is you actually have time to implement these things in your business or in your life before you even get to the weekend. And the beauty in all of this is that we didn't, ponder over this for 6 months. We didn't ponder over this for even a year. It literally was less than a week. And we were like, this is what it's going to be. This is how it's going to happen. So all of the marketing that you saw got done in that amount of time on top of everything else we had going on in our lives. So I say that to say is if you believe in something and if you are opening up yourself to say, I want to be of service to others, there's no better time than right now. You just have to make the decision and go for it. What would you say, Meredith?
Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. I don't even know what I can add to that.
See, here she goes.
I think the biggest thing is, right, that's why it's so important to surround yourself with people who move like you move and who do have, similar values when it comes to like excellence. Like when we started on this and you were like, yo, I'm doing this, I got this. That for me, it's the opposite of competition, right? I'm motivated by you doing your best. I'm like, oh, I want her to see my best. I want her to see my best. And so it's like, it's a different thing that I really, I remember it all the way back to like Howard. It is truly a different mindset that you do see in successful people, that it is not about, I want to dampen somebody else, I want to take somebody else out. It is, ooh, look at that, I want to do something as good or better. And if that means that I can do it together and have fun and learn with my friend, and like I'm looking forward to like hang out with you every week. Right. This is amazing. Right. And I feel like so many people we struggle with, and for me, for 2020, I really wanted to make sure that I'm surrounding myself, even though I'm in Minnesota, which is not the hotbed for Black women that you would think that it is. But I wanted to surround myself with that regardless. And I know it's not just me. I know, as you do from traveling globally, like we're everywhere. And so I think that is such a beautiful thing, that it doesn't take a lot of time. It doesn't take a lot of effort to create something that can have a huge impact. And that has to be like the focus. How are you making an impact?
Yes, no, absolutely. Now, let me say hi. We have Shay, who just joined us. Thank you for
Hey,
being
Shay.
here. Shay is in Detroit. So look at us. We got people all over. I love it.
Detroit. Look at Detroit coming through. Okay, if Minnesota doesn't come through pretty quick, I'm gonna start talking bad about Minnesota. Ooh.
All right. So sorry. That's John. Say hi, John. You're on TV now.
Hi. This is the best my office is.
Welcome
What?
to office hours.
See, it's live, y'all. It's all the way live. All right. So
That was like our stand-in moment when the kid comes in the door. You couldn't even plan this stuff.
exactly.
I love it.
All right. So anybody viewing, do y'all have any questions? Like, we're about 15 minutes in, so this is the time that you can ask us anything. Meredith, give them a little bit of overview as to like what information people typically come and ask you about, and where your skill set lie. Because a lot of people, they know us as, you know, who we are. They may know us personally, but how many people understand like the work that we do? And I will start it off by saying that Meredith is the author of the book, the award-winning book, or best-selling book, Getting Unstuck. So Meredith.
Sure. So my day job, I am a corporate speechwriter, and I do communications with brands and individuals that are breaking through. So I make really difficult concepts like technology, healthcare, retail, very simple. So it's a bit of corporate storytelling. And as a part of that, I'm also an executive coach. So I work with high-performing, overcommitted overachievers to make more time in their life for what is most important. My personal mission is I believe that everybody should do what they love. And so I typically get people who ask me questions because either they can't answer that question, they don't know what it is they want to do, and they realize that they are actually in control of their destiny. And so they're trying to figure out how do you motivate themselves, or it's somebody who does know what they want to do and they realize that that's not what they're doing right now. And so it's questions around how long do I live like this? And how do I make a real change in my life?
Right.
So those are some of the questions I get. Now, Angel, what do people typically ask you? I can only imagine with side hustle to main hustle, like entrepreneurship, but relationship advice too?
Yeah, so typically I get questions definitely around how do I manage traveling, my crazy travel life when I have two young kids. How do you manage fulfilling your purpose when you kind of like what you said, feel kind of stuck or obligated to a particular situation? Like, how do you maneuver through and overcome whatever obstacles that may be holding you back or holding you down so that you can't be your greatest self? So all of those things, and just definitely helping people, mainly women, transition from having a side business into, you know, having full-time entrepreneurship. So those are a lot of the questions that I get, or they're stumped in their business and they're just like, I don't really know where to go from here. Do I keep going? Do I give up? Do I, you know, go back to corporate America? And the most prominent thing that I think that people have been asking me as of lately, because of the work of Women Behind the Business, is the women winning in government contracting. Being able to introduce women to government contracting, what that looks like, what opportunities exist for them. So, girl, all things business is pretty much what people ask. So that is kind of like a brief overview of what people typically come to us for. And I just got to give Meredith was so modest. Meredith was like she worked hand in hand with the first African American CEO of the McDonald's Corporation, and has a wonderful relationship with him. And I'm sure you've been mentored through him and so many other prominent people. So Meredith is a wealth of information. Again, this is a free platform. The time that we are giving away to you all, we really want y'all to ask us questions. Now, we do have questions that people direct message us ahead of time. So we will get into those. But since you guys are here live, we wanted to open up the floor to you first. But if y'all don't ask any questions in the next like 30 seconds, we're going to shoot to one of the questions that was already sent in.
And I just want to make a plug. Well, the people who joined us live today are putting theirs in, but also you can email us at events@visibilitymatters.us, or you can hit either one of us on social media with your questions between now and next Tuesday. So even if you can't make the live show, you can put in your question and be able to get your answers. And that technology is brought to you by Angel Livas and the education at a historically Black college and university.
If you guys haven't noticed, Meredith and I both went to, where did we go to school, Meredith?
HU.
You know. All right. So we have Desha, who has a question for us from the Bahamas. So we got Ghana, we got Detroit,
Woo!
we got Bahamas. I'm loving this. Awesome. All right.
Is it warm in the Bahamas? Is it warm there now?
We'll wait and see what she says back. All right. So her question is, how do you know when it's time to transition from employment to self-employment or owning a business? Okay. So a couple of things that you should look at. One, your finances. If it seems like you are starting to make more money in your side hustle or your self-employment or your business, whatever it is that you're doing on the side, then that's a telltale indicator that if you invested more time strictly focused on that you will generate more revenue. In addition to that, you also have to think about like how you're feeling. If you are completely tapped out at whatever it is that you're doing because your heart's not in it, it's going to show up and it's going to tell in the work that you're delivering. And so sometimes you just have to like dig deep and say, okay, look, have a real come to Jesus meeting with yourself and say, if I keep going down this path, is it going to make me any happier? Am I going to generate any additional results? And if the answer is no, then that means that it's time for you to start taking those steps, like identifying, okay, do you truly believe in yourself? And do you have what it takes to start your business? And then start writing out a plan. What does your transition plan look like? Are you going to stay in this job for 2 months? Are you going to stay for 2 weeks? Whatever it is, just make sure you start to document exactly what it looks like, what your strategy is, so that once you leave, you're not stuck like, I ain't got no money coming in. Because that's the reality. Most people stay stuck in their jobs because I feel like they're in bondage to that paycheck. So making sure that you are open to, open and like just well equipped with everything that you need to move forward in that business. Meredith, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would just say, I think you're absolutely right. Like the majority of the time, our decisions are motivated by finances and by fear. Mm-hmm. So, I think that would be the only thing I would add in there is really being honest with yourself about what it is that you're afraid of. Is it having that money on hand? Is it having a plan for how you're going to continue to grow and develop that business? Are you even just wondering, is that the business that you want to do full time? So I think just taking that time to explore and really do your research on the front end, whatever you can do to make yourself feel really confident. I know like for myself, it was not so much like the pull of this is what I want to do. It was, I know I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I know I don't want to be coming back here no more. So it was different, right? So I just want to acknowledge that, like, I did not have a great plan. In fact, when I told my dad specifically that I was quitting, he cussed me all the way out. Like, what are you doing? This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. So I think knowing if you're running from something is important, because then it might not be that you really want to start a different job. It might just be this job is not the right job for you. And I think that's how you get some people who will get into entrepreneurship and they weren't really honest about, it's not less work, like true or false.
No, it's more work.
It's definitely more work. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's 100%. Like, so I think that's important as you think about making that mindset shift. Like if you can, to your point, if you can start doing that now, you'll waste less time when you switch over, and it's really your money.
And the other thing that we talked about briefly before the show last night was sometimes when you're in those positions, it teaches you what you don't want.
Yes.
Right? It teaches you, like, I think Meredith, you gave the example last night, like, I don't want a job who where my boss schedules a meeting at 8 a.m. and then sends me a cancellation notification at 7:59. I don't
Yes.
want to work around people like that. So sometimes there's lessons in being in what I call valleys.
Yes.
And you're able to take away as much information as you can. So even if you do start that business, you know what not to do. You know different policies to put in place in your employee handbook. Like, this is not permitted on these premises because I'm in control of this.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to give a shout out. I think Smokey just tuned in all the way back from HU. What?
ATL.
Hey. But yes, that was when one of the mini jobs that I quit. And when I wanted to quit, my parents said, just pay attention. If you don't like it, learn what you don't want to do. And I was like, well, so that's why I always try to be sensitive to people. Like, sometimes legit, your job is killing you. That's a real thing for people. And you have to, like you said, make a real plan. Like, that's the first empowering step, is just being able to articulate, this is what I need to do, and then checking those milestones off of the list.
Now, if we don't have any more questions for people on the line, Meredith, you want to go to one of our questions that came in earlier?
Yes. Do you want to give a second, or I can go into it? Because it was a pretty good question.
Okay, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay. So, yes, go with my question. Okay, so the question was that this person has been an attorney and very successful as an attorney, but now, just given the grind of the work to become partner, doesn't know that that's what she wants to do. So her question was, how do you make the pivot from what you've always done to, in this case, she wants to position herself in communications, which it sounds like it's something she's probably done, but it hasn't been in her job title. So what advice, Angel, as the master of like shifting from area to area? No?
I mean, I think that I would just start. Again, like, goes back to what we said earlier. Like, if you know that you have this passion in communication, and like you said, it's probably something you've been doing all along. I would start just charging people to see, like, okay, well, will you pay me for the work that I've been doing all along? Because most of the time people will, but we never say, I want to get paid for my services. And so sometimes it's as simple as that step.
Sure. Let me get some more.
Girl, Siri started talking. She said, sure. Sometimes it's as simple as just saying, I know my worth in this area and I want to start being paid for that. I know this is more like, I don't know, like I have enough that I can say about it, but I feel like this is more your purview, Meredith. Like, because I'm just going to tell people, just go out there and do it. Like, if you know that this is what you want to do, and like we said, like, if you're doing it already, like, what are you waiting for? Are you waiting for me to give you permission that you can do it? Sure, you have my permission. Go do it. But,
you know what? You just embodied why everybody need a friend from Detroit. Because she was like, you need your permission? You got it. Now do it. But I do think that that is a thing, right, in life. There is that level of motivation where you need somebody to do that. I think sometimes what happens for people who've been in one job, particularly like attorneys, doctors, people who've done things since like education, you only can see yourself that way now, right? And that like has become so much of your identity that it's hard to separate out either not being an attorney or just looking at it differently. Mm-hmm. My sister is an attorney. She doesn't necessarily practice law, but for her to shift her mindset to seeing herself as valuable in other areas, it was like, well, look at all of the components of being an attorney. It's not just like reading torts. It's relationship management. Mm-hmm. It's business development. It's marketing. And so I think if people can really, what I would say if this was a client of mine is I would say to do a time audit and to look at what is it that you actually do in a week or in a month and think about what would you call that? Do some research like on LinkedIn and see, are those marketing meetings? Are they sales meetings? And then notice how you feel about them. If you're finding that they're like...
But she says she wants to go into communications.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If you're already, to your point, what she might find when you audit your time is that you already are doing mm-hmm. communications. Mm-hmm. I'm already spending time writing and editing and reading, but I've just always associated that with being an attorney.
Yeah.
So if you can really break it down and see what you're doing, you can reframe it and rename it for yourself. And sometimes that's all we need, along with a friend who says, girl, you've been doing it.
So I would say this, though, because I think where I thought you were going with this was, this is where I thought you were going, is that we have perceptions of what it means to have a certain title. And sometimes we're so attached to that title and the stature of that title that shifting to something that we might feel is less than makes us feel less than, you know, or not worthy enough of whatever it is that they may have been doing in the past. So how would you help somebody? Because I think that's more of a kind of like that believing in yourself, and that, you know, you're not shifting, it's just your title shifting. So how would you help somebody overcome that fear of, I'm no longer an attorney, I'm a blogger?
Well, I think a big part of it, right, is just acknowledging the fact that nobody cares. Like, what are we talking about? Nobody cares. Like you just said, like, I could care less what you call yourself. You have to like it. And I think it's not even so much thinking that something is less than. I don't know. That's a hard one, because I was always like, my dad, we always grew up with like, your hands are not better than my hands. So it wasn't so much like something is worse. It's just this idea that different is bad. You know, like some people have less experience with change, whether that's changing your title, changing your company, changing your geography. And so I think if you can find a way to get comfortable with that, to get excited about change and what that means for you, instead of fearing that and fearing what could be different. So one of the things that I find helps me is to actually like use examples, to interview people. And for some people, they call that mentoring, but that to me is a longer term commitment. This is like informational interviews. Maybe you look up and see a couple of people who've made a pivot from being an attorney to being in communications, and talk to them about how did they make that change, what did they find was useful. And just by knowing that you're not like the only unicorn in the world that's ever done that, you can start to feel like you have a tribe and that this is a normal evolution.
Right.
I think looking at it from, instead of change as you just evolving, and that's normal in life, helps with some of the anxiety about feeling judged that you are going to do something different today than yesterday.
Now, hi, Julio. Julio just messaged us as well.
Hey.
He's here in DC. All right. So my other question that I would have then is, how would you help somebody who really feels like they're trapped, right? In the sense that they know that they can do it. They have no doubts in their mind. They're ready to go, but their family doesn't support their decision. Their family, kind of like what you said, like your dad was like, girl, get your life. Like, I don't know what you thought or why, but no. Yeah. How do you help somebody transition if they feel like they're stuck in that regard? And again, this is Meredith Crosby, the author of Getting Unstuck.
Yeah. So I think it's a couple of things here. I think that for one part, when it's your family that doesn't understand what it is you want to do with your life, right? The first part of that is releasing that it doesn't matter what you're like. I can use a perfect example of when I started this business, even though my dad started it in 1973. When I started taking on clients in the present tense, he was like, this is illegal. Like, the things you're saying you're going to do, this isn't real. You can't, it's not a real business. And you get a choice in life if you're going to live your life, or if you're going to live an extension of your parents' life, or your spouse's life, or your school's life, or your job's life. I mean, I remember being in some of my jobs and they would say, like, you have to drive this kind of a car. And I was like, do I? Like, I think I get a choice. And so for me, it was when I started to feel like my values were being pushed too far away from what they really were in order for me to advance at work, or in order for me to even be happy at work. That for me is an indicator. Like, if it's painful, if you at the end of the night are like crying on the phone every night and you're cussing people out and you're talking about what you're going to do when they come out of the bathroom stall, that's not good. You should leave. Like, it's better to leave when it's funny Yeah, than when you've really like done something that will harm your career. So I think the second part of that is getting somebody who's a friend who's outside of the situation who you can call.
Mhm.
Like at my worst points, I had a friend who also was in a crappy job at another company, and we could at least call and be like, this is what these dummies did today. Like you have to find humor because it takes time to get unstuck.
Mhm.
Unless like me, like you're just gonna quit one day, which I did do, but I mean a lot of people like to like give notice and stuff. So if you're gonna stay there for a while, you have to find a way to make it fun, make it livable, and definitely not kill yourself while you're on the job. Is that helpful?
Yes, no, absolutely. And just to add to that, I think that it's important to make sure that you are happy with you first. Like,
Yeah.
first and foremost, because if you are walking around and you are just unhappy in whatever your situation is, whether it's just like on the job, and it could very well be that it has nothing to do with the job, but you just feel like this is not where I'm supposed to be. And if you feel like this isn't where you're supposed to be, then no matter what anybody else tells you, and you guys I'm sure will hear me say this a million and one times, no matter what anyone tells you, you know what feels right, and you know when you feel like you're not living up to your full potential.
Yes.
And nobody can tell you that you are.
True.
That's something that is within you that nobody can say, right?
Yeah.
And so if nobody can speak to it, you also have to understand that your vision is that is your own.
Mm-hmm.
And so everybody does not have the privilege nor the understanding of what your vision really is. Sometimes you can be around a whole bunch of blind people and you not even realize that they don't understand what it takes to walk in your shoes, because your purpose for your life is not the same purpose for their life. So
can I add to that, Angel? Can I add to that?
Yes.
Because also I think the other thing, particularly if it's your parents or your grandparents, is that we have to forgive them that they can't even dream this big. Mm-hmm. Like when you think about our kids, my mom always has this thing about our kids dwell in the house of the future, a place we'll never even be able to visit. Like, so I think that there is some generational in this that, I mean, like, for our grandmothers to think that we're going to be on the internet talking to each other, and we got people from Ghana and Bahamas and Detroit all talking about how we're going to advance our careers. Like, this is some kind of crazy stuff. So I think owning that everybody is a visionary, mm-hmm. like at the very least, if everybody could take on that title, but I didn't want to interrupt you. I just wanted to enhance that, girl. That's all. That was my ad.
You so silly. No, I mean, that's really it. Like, you know, I just want us to always be mindful that our journey is our journey. And at the end of the day, you got one life to live. And so if you left this earth today, would you feel like you were fulfilling what you truly and ultimately wanted to do? Were you walking purposefully? Were you being bold in your attempts to fulfill what you had this burning desire to do? Like that burning desire, like when you're able to say, yo, like when you can put a check mark next to something that's going towards you reaching that goal, it feels good no matter how big or how small it is. And so, you know, whether it's a tiptoe or a run or a leap, like just make sure you're moving forward in the direction of being able to walk boldly in your purpose. So we are out of time. We said we were going 30 minutes. And I want to hold true to that, at least until we get a sense of like what you all think. So we hope that you all will share your feedback. Definitely, you know, write us, let us know what you thought about the first office hour show, what you would like to see more of, what you would like to see less of. Meredith, you have a link that people can go to where everybody, if you want, you can subscribe to receive the show if you're not able to join us every Tuesday at 2 p.m. or Tuesday at 1 Central Standard Time, because Meredith is in Minnesota and I am here in DC. So, Meredith, can you shoot them that link?
I will. I will drop it in the chat there.
Okay. And once that is there, then we can say sayonara. But we appreciate you all for taking the time to hang out with us in the office for the last half hour. We look forward to seeing you all next week. Next week, I will be joining you live from, I think I'll be in Bangkok or Phuket. I have to double check my schedule. But wherever I am looking forward to being here with you all. That link is eepurl.com/GPLJYL. It is in the chat. So you don't, if you missed it, it's there. You guys can grab it. And you can send us your questions to events@visibilitymatters.us. And again, it's been so good hanging out with you all, and we will see you next week, same time on Facebook Live. Meredith, any last parting words?
I just want to say, put on your notifications so that you'll know next time that we go live and you won't miss a minute. But thank you for joining us.
Yes,
and